After you've got your profile done, the next step is to calculate gradients. But before you do that, there's something really, really important you must do. Make a copy of your profile. Don't go scribbling all over this, then make a mess, because if you muck this up, you will have to redraw that profile. And how long did that take you the first time? So, always make a copy and work on the copy. Really, really important. Now what I have to do here is find the steep sections. Now, obviously, this bit in here and this bit in here are too steep. I'm going to hazard a guess at saying this bit is here is also too steep. But what about the bits either side? If I'm going to fill across here, am I allowed to have a road this sharp? And it's actually hard to tell just by looking at it because of this vertical exaggeration. It looks much steeper than it really is. So what we have to do is calculate gradients. And it's important, for example, if I want to know the gradient here, that I don't look at this section or even this section, because this line here, for example, is much, much shallower than this section here. I must look at each individual section that has a different slope. So, although I don't have to do this bit over here, I'm going to do it anyway just to show you what you can do. So if I draw a triangle in here, what's the gradient? Well, that's 24 high and that's 23 high, so it's 1 metre up, and we went across how far? Actually, I can count squares, can't I? Because this is 1 mil grid paper. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to here, plus another 4 to there. So that's 9 squares across. Well, my scale was 1 to 10,000, right? So every centimetre on here is 10,000 centimetres or 100 metres. So if in each of my centimetres I've got 10 little squares, then each little square must be 10 metres. So I've got 1 metre going up and 90 metres going across, because 9 squares. 1 metre in 90. Alright, so this bit's gradient is 1 in 90. That's pretty shallow. I'm happy with that. This bit is obviously too steep. All the way to there is too steep. But what about this section here? Well, it goes up 1 metre across, 1 metre up in 1 square across. Now, for you to see the exact squares, you really need to look very closely at your own. You won't be able to tell on this video. 1 metre up, 1 square across is 10 metres. So this slope here, this one here, is 1 in 10. Now, if this is 1 in 10, and I'm allowed to have 1 in 10, then I don't need to look at the slope of this section, because this is my limit, 1 in 10. Anything shallower than this, I know is going to be allowed. And that's why I said at the very start, you don't actually have to look at all of every point of the route. You only have to look at the steep bits. What's steep? 1 in 10. Anything sharper than this. So this bit's shallower. I know these bits are okay. That's okay. That's okay. This is okay, but this bit I'm just going to assume is far too steep. And I'll deal with that. But what about this bit? Well, it looks steeper than this. I'm not sure about it compared to that, so let's work it out. Well, from here, 25 here, up to 30, and I went across 2 and 5 is 7, 8 squares. So I went up 5 metres. This section here was 5 metres in 80 metres. 5 metres up and 80 metres across. I want to write it as 1 in something. Divide by 5, divide by 5. If you have trouble, 80 divided by 5 is 16. 1 in 16 is shallower, flatter than 1 in 10. So that's okay, and so all of this is also okay. This bit looks alright, but let's check this section. This section looks the same as this one actually. I went up 1 metre for 1 square across. So that's 1 in 10. Oops, 1 in 10. Now, I'm scribbling all over my profile. You might prefer instead to tabulate it. Call this A, B, C, D, E, and make a table somewhere that says the slope of A is the slope of B, the slope of C, etc. And highlight all the sections where you know you have to fix because they're too steep. So this bit's 1 in 10. This bit looks steeper. Let's check it. It's 5 metres up, and I went across, it's hard to read actually, I went across 3 squares, which is 3 squares is 30 metres. 5 in 30 divided by 5 is 1 in 6. So I'm actually allowed to have this section as long as it's less than 50 metres, because it's between 1 in 10 and 1 in 5, and the task sheet says I'm allowed to have up to 1 in 5 as long as it's less than 50 metres. Well, it's 30 metres, so that's okay. But be careful, because the next section is too steep. What you've got to be careful of is that you don't have this section is between 1 in 10 and 1 in 5, and this bit's between 1 in 10 and 1 in 5, and this bit's between 1 in 10 and 1 in 5, and each of those sections might be less than 50 metres, but this whole slope is longer than 50 metres. Then you say, no, the whole slope is too long. But you have to check it. This bit I'm technically allowed, but I'm not allowed this section. Okay, so I have to fill there somewhere or do something with that. Let's have a look at this section. We went up 4 metres. 4 metres up in, how far across did I go? 3 boxes, 4 boxes across, which is 40. And that's good, that's 1 in 10. I'm allowed that, which means I'm allowed that, because it's less steep. What about this section? We went up 5 metres, and we went across 1, 2, 3 squares. So that's the same as this one up here, 1 in 6. So I'd be allowed that if it's less than 50 metres. So far it is, but what about this section here? This is 5 metres up in, let me count it carefully, 4 boxes, 40. Well, that's 1 in 8, which this is what I was talking about before. This is less than 50 metres and this is less than 50 metres, but together I've got 70 metres at steeper than 1 in 5. So I'm actually not allowed to have that. It's too steep. What about this bit? Well, this bit's going up 5 metres and it's going across 1, 2, hard to read, isn't it? 4, 6, 60. Divide by 5, 1 in 12. So I'm allowed that, and therefore everything else to the top. So for me in this profile, I need to fix this bit, this bit. This bit's allowed as long as I stop it here, but all of this is too steep, and this bit is too steep. Make sure you know what you're going to have to fix. It's actually worth getting a highlighter or something like it and marking what am I going to have to deal with on my next copy. This is okay but dodgy. This all has to change. This has to change. Okay, this bit's, well, we'll wait and see what we're going to do with that.